All right, second trig unit we had was the trig equation stuff. So let's remember this. Astica. Is that coming back to your brain? Astica? Okay. Sine of the angle is negative. Where could this angle be? If sine is negative, where could it be? In the bottoms. And tan is positive. Where could it be if a tan is positive? So which quadrant am I actually in? In quadrant 3. Okay, because it has to work for both of them. So that's the quadrant that works for both of them. Okay, so sine of the angle is negative 13 over 85. Okay, so you can think SOHCAHTOA, the opposite and the hypotenuse, or you have these three formulas on your formula sheet. So sine is the y and the r, or you can think the opposite over hypotenuse if you're thinking the SOHCAHTOA stuff from grade 10. So you're really cute. X-rated, thank you, excellent. Okay, but you do get these formulas. Okay, so I need negative 13 on that triangle. Where are you going to put it? On which side of the triangle are you going to put the negative 13? Okay, opposite of the angle or the y part of the triangle. And where are you going to put the 85? The hypotenuse or the radius? Okay, I'm going to solve for x here. What do I know about the x value according to its location? What do you know about coordinates in this? What's the x value? Positive or negative? Negative. Okay, so I do know that. When I do the math on this unit, do you remember my rule? Don't do the math with negatives. Put the negatives in locations. Okay, so I'm going to do 85 squared minus 13 squared because I'm getting a shorter side. So Pythagorean will be a subtract. Okay, and then you obviously have to square root it yet, because that's a squared. And I get 84. Anybody else got that? So x, we solved for x. It's negative 84, because we already thought, okay, what is it, positive or negative? Got to remember that. Okay, the cos of the angle. So now I can go according to my formula sheet. So on my formula sheet, I'm looking and I see an x over an r. So x divided by r. And the tan of the angle is, and then I look on my formula sheet and I see a y over an x. So y over x. And then how do you think I would like you to write that number differently? I'm going to simplify it. How could I change this to simplify it? Two negatives make a positive. And guess what? That makes sense because I'm in the asterisk. I'm in this T quadrant, so what should I have? A positive tan number, a negative cos number, and a negative sine number. That's what I should have. Okay, number 6. How would I start this problem? What's a good place to start? What do you see that you recognize? Quadratic stuff? When you think quadratic stuff, what do you think originally? Factors? All right. So I think this is a complex. Can we do some trial and error here? We can figure this out. What's the only way to make 2 tan squared? What do you have to multiply together? 1 tan x and 2 tan x. What's the only way to produce the last 2? You need a 1 times a 2. Can you figure out with the puzzle where you want to put the 1 and where you want to put the 2? Can you figure out your puzzle? Which line do I need to put the 1 on and which line do I need to put the 2 on in order to do this and this together, making a 3? Can you figure that out? Use some problem solving stuff. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the 2 here, making 4, and the 1 here, making 1. And then I need a +4 and a -1. And that's how I got to my 3. Okay, you can flow this, get all your partners. You can do that. But there's a little bit of problem solving if you can do this way, because there's not very many options. Okay, so I'm going to go tan x equals -2. And tan x equals, remember how to do this one? It's a fraction. 1/2. Okay, now, so that was like, if you're going to do this exam question, you get 1 out of 6 points right now. So don't stop there. That's just figuring out this, what I call is the trig value. That's all I've done. I need to get what the angle x is. Okay, my first question for you is asterisk. Where am I if tan of the angle is negative? Which 2 quadrants would it be negative? An angle in quadrant 2 and in quadrant 4. Second step, can you get me a reference amount? So I'm going to now, we know when we need an angle, we tan inverse. What's really, really, really important when we do this? Don't do the negatives in the math. We already applied the negative into the location, right? So that reference, remember, is what you are from an x-axis. That's what that one was always giving you. What you are from the x-axis. how do I figure out my actual answer? So what do I do with this one? I'm 63.4 degrees what? Smaller than 180, right? I'm behind 180. And what do you think about the other one? Your 63.4 degrees was smaller than 360. And do you remember your numbers? So this one would have to be somewhere between 90 and 180, right? When I look at it, it's between 90 and 180. This one has to be somewhere between 270 and 360 somewhere. Okay. Now we got to do the other. So tan is a half. So where could it be? In 1 or 3 in those quadrants. Now I'm going to tan inverse the 1/2, and that's going to give me a reference. And that reference is saying to me, I'm this far from the x-axis. Okay, your first answer in quadrant 1 is just 26.6. And then how would I get this one? I'm 26.6 what? Past 180. Okay? So make sure on those questions you don't just stop at the trig values, remembering you're always answering the angle equals this. Okay, I'm going to use what kind of math strategy to start this? So remember your algebra branch. Where do you always start? I only have one variable here, so I'm going to isolate. Okay, did you notice my strategy on the last one? I had tan squareds and tans, 2 variables, 0 factoring. Here I have one variable, so let's isolate. That's what you're always thinking of that algebra branch I gave you. Okay, do not stop there. That's all that's given you is a 1/2 of a point. How do we get the angle? So go through the steps. Step 1, where are you? Astica, where are you? Cos negative. Step 2, get me some kind of angle to start with. Okay, do not put the negatives in because I already did the negatives in my drawing. And then the final step is figuring out where exactly you are. Okay, so those are some big point questions, so make sure you hit those on your reviews. Okay, those are like, that one would be worth 4, the other one could be worth 5 or 6. Okay, using the unit circle, do we remember this? Okay, you do not need to memorize it. Remember, I made you do it on the test. I give you one. So please don't spend your time studying that, and you don't need to. Okay, so don't practice a unit circle. Obviously be familiar with it, but you don't have to memorize it. So you're going to get this on the test and this. You're going to get those two things. Okay, so cos of 150. So first of all, cos is x over r. So now I'm going to go to 150. So here I am. What's the x value? So I take the x coordinates, so negative root 3 over 2. And what is the radius when I look at this circle? What's the radius amount? Do you remember? How big of a radius does it have? It's right in your face. What's the radius? What's the length? 1. This circle, that's why it's called the unit circle. The radius is 1. Guess what? I don't need to divide by 1. So that's my answer. Okay, sine of 225. So my first step on the exam is figure the formula out. So y over the r. And this is the unit circle. So again, I don't need to do that because it's dividing by 1. So I'm going to go to 225. So I'm right here, and I'm going to look at the y coordinate. So I'm looking here, and that value is negative root 2 over 2. And everybody will have a calculator, and if you try to do this and write that down, you get 0 points. So don't do that. Okay, this is exact value. So please make sure you don't write me this on your exam because I can't give you any points at all for it. So don't do that. I can use that to check my answer if I really wanted to, because I could say, hey, that, and then what is negative root 2 divided by 2? Oh, that's the same decimal. I can do that to check, but I can't use it. Okay, last one here. Tan of 300. So the first thing I'd write is tan is formula y over x. So on this one, I don't get to cross anything off because there's no R1. So that doesn't work. So I'm going to go to 300. And I'm going to write my y. So negative root 3 over 2 divided by the x. So divided by a half. How do I do this process of dividing fractions? Do the flip multiply. What happens here? 2's can cancel. And there is my final answer. Okay. Just a note, what if this happened? What if you ended up with these values, a 0 divided by 1? Because that could happen somewhere, right? Y divided by x, that could happen there. Or on the 90 degrees, you could get a 1 divided by 0. What would you write me if this was what you were getting? You would write me 0. What would you write me if this was what you got? Undefined. Yeah, good word. Okay, it's not a no solution, it's undefined, right? Do you understand the difference of when to write each one?